Hello everyone, I am the Dungeon Master. This is the Danger Club podcast, and I am here to talk to you today about the Galaxy Exploration Manual for Starfinder. The Galaxy Exploration Manual is part of a recent drive by Paizo to provide rules to expand your Starfinder homebrew campaigns, rather than just churning out loads of pre-written adventures, although they're still doing that as well, because Paizo produce quite a lot of books. We've had the Starship Operations Manual, which had a ton of new ships. We've got the upcoming Tech Revolution, which we will be talking about in the future because it has mechs in it, and mechs are cool. And right in the middle, you have this, the Galaxy Exploration Manual. It's a book that promises to be for both players and for GMs. It's a book that promises to help you build your own galaxies. But crucially, is it a book you need to buy? Let's find out. Now, if you're a Starfinder player, there's a very good chance you fit into one of three camps. Either you're one of these people who only plays adventure paths, you play a pre-written adventure following along a line of different plot points, and that's the story that you want to get. The second is maybe you're one of these people who says, thank you very much for the rules, I'm not going to learn the setting, off I go, and I'm going to make my own homebrew campaign completely not using any of the Starfinder lore at all. I'm going to reskin it and do Star Trek or something like that. And that's a fun way to play as well. Or you're in the third camp, which is sort of where I sit, where you like the setting, you like the game, you like some of the adventures, but you just can't help but think, oh, what would happen if I just pointed my starship in that direction and press go? The Galaxy Exploration Manual wants to appeal to you whichever of those camps you fall into. It's promising lots of player backgrounds and abilities, but also rules for creating planets and galaxies itself. It's a big promise, and often when you set out to please everyone, you kind of end up pleasing no one. Now, is this true of the Galaxy Exploration Manual? Well, let's take a look inside and we'll find out. Okay, the one thing I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about on here is the art, because the art is fantastic. It's always fantastic. Of course it's fantastic. It's a Paizo book. There's going to be good art in here, okay? We can just take that as read. The first thing we get to is the background generator, which lets you come up with a background for your character. I love background generators. We used them on the Danger Club podcast to create the original characters for that. I still use the one from Ultimate Campaign whenever I'm making a Pathfinder character, so to see something like this in Starfinder is very exciting to me. As somebody who has trouble coming up with very detailed backstories for their characters all the time, being able to roll on a different chart and have it tell me things like where my character is from, significant events that happened to them in the past, people they've met, how they met the other characters, all that stuff is really useful. I like it a lot. You know what? Let's give it a little trial run and see how it works. It would help if I had my dice with me, wouldn't it? So let's start out with our new spacefaring adventurer. Let's find out what kind of character we're dealing with here. Let's start with where they're from, a place of origin. We're going to roll a D100. I'm doing it live. Your home is a starship and its crew like family. Maybe they've been long-haul truckers, mercenaries, smugglers, space pirates, surveyors, musicians touring the galaxy. All right, okay, so our home is our starship. That's already given us a bit of a Firefly vibe, something like that. Maybe raised on kind of maybe like a Battlestar Galactica thing, kind of drifting through space. Let's have a major event from our character's history. So you were the subject of experimentation. You've been abducted or tricked into it. Maybe you volunteered. Either way, it was probably painful and you might still suffer the side effects. If you're an escapee, the experimenters might be looking for you. My goodness. All right, so we were experimented on. We stole a starship with some people and we fled into it. And that starship has been our only home ever since. Let's grab an influential associate, shall we? A trusted mechanic that keeps your starship maintained or upgraded in port. Whether they're a junker working with spare parts or a corporate innovator, they're always willing to bump you to the front of the queue. I like how there are different options in this, that you can read each of these entries a little bit of a different way. Okay, so we fled off in a starship. Our only friend is a mechanic working in a starport who keeps our starship running, who keeps us flying. This is really nice already. Okay, let's pick one of the other party members. So how am I going to know? Let's pick James's character. It's always going to be James. James has got a medic. How do I know James is medic? You and this character temporarily competed, such as applying for the same job or pursuing the same lover, but you are both passed over for someone else, and now you're bonded over your shared rejection. Well, that's just mine and James's friendship on so many jobs, isn't it? But there we go, that's great. So we've already got so much stuff that you can build a character from here, and this is all stuff that doesn't affect your class, it doesn't affect how you play the game from now on, but it just gives you a few bullet points to go on, and I love that you can do that in a few seconds and make a character. That's really fun. Okay, next up we've got some character options. Lots of feats, lots of abilities, all sorts of different classes, although of course not the Nanosite because it's not out yet, it's probably stuck in a boat in the Suez Canal or something like that. There are a lot of them. Here are a few of my favourites, just to point out some of the sort of flavour that you're going to get in there. Take 'em alive. It's an envoy ability, which lets you use your reaction to convert a lethal attack that one of your allies just made into non-lethal damage. So super useful when the Murdervesk is going all Murdervesky and you actually want to ask some questions to the NPC. A really nice little teamwork ability there. Heavy landing. Solarian ability. It lets you gather up the kinetic energy of your falling, turn that into a graviton strike when you hit the ground that's going to It's the superhero landing. That's what it is. It's a superhero landing. Solarians are crazy. I love them. Witch Warper. Witch Warper's always got weird stuff. I really like some of the Witch Warper ones. How about swap ammo and dimensional medic? So swap ammo, you switch the ammo between two weapons. So you switch the ammo between two of them without the person noticing. Really useful if you're out of ammo and your opponent isn't. You can just be like, whoop, now I have the gun. Wonderful little ability. And dimensional medic, where you heal yourself by swapping out your wounds with an alternative reality version of yourself where you're not injured, which presumably means in another alternative reality somewhere there's like some horror movie version of sliding doors happening where someone is just receiving wounds without knowing where they're coming from. Witch Warpers are weird. I love them. After that, we get a bunch of downtime activities. It's about exploring the galaxy, so it's going to give you loads of abilities for exploring the galaxy. We're going to have rules for scanning systems, and then rules for scanning those systems that you've scanned to find gravity wells, and then some rules for scanning and analysing those gravity wells to see if they're planets, and then rules for scanning those planets to find out if there's interesting things on the planets that maybe you want to go to. I like having downtime activities. I like having things that I can do on the starship. But do you remember the bit in Mass Effect, in the Mass Effect games, where you had to fly to planets and you'd take a break from all of the laser fights and the romancing aliens and the story to go and scan planets for hours and hours and hours and hours? Yeah. Add in a bit of equipment and that's all you really get for players. Exciting, interesting, but not really setting the galaxy on fire. Until you get to the second half of the book. And that is where things get very interesting indeed. So the second half of this book is called Infinite Worlds, and that is where the real magic kicks in. About a year ago, Paizo brought out a product called the Deck of Many Worlds, which was a deck of cards that you deal out, and it's a way of creating a planet in a couple of minutes by just pulling cards out of a deck, and that tells you a little bit about the planet. And what happened recently was that somebody at Paizo went, that was fun, but what if we did a whole book of that? So your players have just ended up on a random planet, say. Maybe they're off exploring, maybe they've taken a break from the main quest, maybe you got drunk and forgot to write a session this week. I've done that. And you want to create a planet from nothing for them. That is what this chapter is all about. Infinite Worlds promises to give you the tools to randomly generate a planet from the ground up, covering all kinds of details, like big stuff like what kind of biome you're dealing with, what the gravity is like, the general idea of the planet, whether it's a gas giant, right down to specific stuff like, what is the local population like? And on top of that, it gives you plot hooks as well, little story ideas that you can use to create stuff. I'll tell you what, let's try it. Let's make a planet. Alright, I got my D100s. Let's find out what we get. So first of all, I'm going to find out what kind of astronomical object we have come into orbit around. 7. It's a terrestrial world. You've got a 50% chance of getting a terrestrial world because that makes sense. That's the kind of thing you're often going to find. Okay, so it's a terrestrial world. What's the... Oh, look, let's find out. What's the gravity like? What's the atmosphere like? The gravity... It's got very high gravity, so everything's going to be very heavy here. Maybe it's like a super Earth, something like that. What's the atmosphere like? It's normal. Oh, that's good. That's good. But you could have like a toxic atmosphere. You could have no atmosphere, so you've got to wear your spacesuit all of the time. Okay, so far we've got a high gravity, normal. It's looking pretty straightforward. Let's make some biomes. Now you can roll as many of these as you like, depending on how detailed you want the planet to be, or you could just roll one and do the Star Wars thing and have everything as one geographical feature. Let's do the Star Wars thing. It's a D12 this time. It's a subterranean world, so everything that happens on this planet happens underground. So we go to the subterranean chapter. There's loads of information there on what kind of things you can expect. You can roll and find out what creatures live there. Let's have a little look. So the sapient creatures that live there are hobgoblins. We've got hobgoblins living underground, but they are being menaced by guardian robots. Hobgoblins and robots going to war in some tunnels, and we've just landed there trying to refuel our starship. And you know what? To make it even more interesting, we can even roll an adventure hook. Here's a d20. A planar tear has led to an influx of fire elementals threatening a nearby underground metropolis. The residents need help holding off the elemental incursion and closing the rift to the elemental plane of fire. So there, with a few dice rolls, we have created a gigantic super Earth with a colony of hobgoblins living underground who are being menaced by robots. And right in the middle of this, a portal to the plane of fire has opened up. Fire elementals are spilling out into the tunnels. It's up to us to stop them, to drive them back and close the portal. There's your game session tonight. Lovely. There's even a thing called the Accord system where you can roll on charts depending on how advanced the civilization you want to have is there. So maybe your players could get involved in a tribal feud, or maybe they could be involved in like a high-level political assassination. It really does get very detailed, and it's a really nice tool. But that's not all. At the back of the book, there is a section on running sandbox campaigns in general, and it goes into a really surprising amount of detail on how to build encounters. I mean, look at this guide here for nested encounters. It really does pull the veil back on game design. There's some nice stuff. And in at the back, you've got loads of charts for details on how to make some original NPCs, how to make settlements, how to make treasure. The treasure generator is really, really lovely. And these are genuinely tools which any GM could use. It doesn't even have to be Starfinder. It's useful for a lot of different things. So who is this book for? Well, I'll tell you who it's not for, and I am sad to say this because I really do like a lot of these features. I don't think it's for players as much as it says that it is. All of the things in there are nice. The background generator is really, really good. The abilities are really, really good. The equipment, some of it is really, really good. But all of that stuff is going to be on Archives of Nethys, and it's probably going to be easier to search on there, and it's going to be free. AON is not always a perfect replacement for having an actual rulebook. Anyone who has tried to run Starship Combat out of it will know this very well. But in this case, as a player, it is the better option. But if there is an audience for this book, then it is for your gaming group as a whole. If you are a GM, you will be bowled over by the level of detail in the world building tools in this book. And crucially, it's the kind of detail that you will not get from the Deck of Many Worlds or from looking at some tables in Archives of Nethys. You will only really get it from looking at this book. Honestly, I really cannot say enough about how good the Infinite Worlds chapter. It's so good. This is what Starfinder has been crying out for, a tool that lets you go and explore the galaxy, lets you make it your sandbox, something that lets you and the GM make a world out of nothing, on the fly, with loads of detail, and that lets the GM have that sense of exploration as well. The fact you're finding out all of this stuff as you go, it makes the game more collaborative. It makes it into a storytelling exercise, which is where this game really, really shines. It's wonderful for that. I want to leave you with a final scenario, which I think will help tell you whether or not you want to buy this book. Say you're part of a gaming group, like a games club, something like that. We're all starting to come back together now. And you're looking for a new campaign, something that everybody can do. Well, pick up a few copies of the Galaxy Exploration Manual. give them out to your GMs. Maybe get some copies of the Starship Exploration Manual, throw some of those rules in. Now, make it extra interesting, grab the trading mechanics from Fly Free or Die Book 1. They're really, really nice. Add those in, rules for smuggling and picking up cargo, stuff like that. Spread that around. What you've just created here is a living world campaign. You've created a situation where different GMs can run different games every week, which they just roll up on the fly with some plot hooks. They make a sort of Star Trek style Planet of the Week adventure. Every one of those planets goes up on the board and you create your own galaxy as you go along. And you've created this world that multiple crews, multiple player groups are all playing in and they're all contributing to. And every game is making your world richer and more detailed. If that makes you excited, this is the book for you. That is what this book is all about, and that's what it does really, really well. The Galaxy Exploration Manual is probably not for everyone, but it does have some really amazing tools, and if you want to use it in the way that it wants to be used, then you can do some really, really fun things with it. If you are looking to get into your starship, point it in a random direction and fly off into the wild black yonder, then I have to say, with this book, the possibilities, well, they're infinite. Thanks for watching this review. Let us know what you think about sandbox games in the comments below. If you've enjoyed it, hit subscribe. Maybe go over to the Danger Club podcast, listen to us playing some of these games that we talk about on the channel. It really is very, very good. Until next time, I have been the Dungeon Master, reminding you to stay dangerous. Take care, everyone.
We should do a nice little bit of melody because that'll be an inoffensive distraction.
Oh yeah, get the bard to sing a song.
Yeah,
what are you going to do? Tell me to shut up halfway through?
No, I'll get the bard to sing a song. I'll get the fighter to do a fight, and I'll get the druid to heal, and I'll get Velda to
spells.
Anyway,
I'll tell you what. I'll tell a story.
Shania's already over at the house climbing up one of the legs.
Gather round, ye town folk. Let me tell you a story. There was once a person, and that person was feeling a bit low, and then their friend came round and said, "Are you all right?" And he said no, and then he said, "Well, let me cheer you up," and he made him a cup of tea, and then they had a chat and they felt better. The moral of the story is, listen to your friends.
All of the Danger Club have gathered round, getting what the stealth mission was. We all gathered round to watch Bob's story.
Guys, this wasn't for you.
Oh yeah.